If you have your Bibles, come on, go with me to the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter number 10. The Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter number 10. Go down with me, beginning with verse number 30. You find these words there. Luke's Gospel, chapter number 10, beginning with verse number 30. Then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Stay there with me in that chapter as we go into this subject very briefly. Messed up and passed up. Messed up and passed up. The Bible contains a story that highlights the difficulties we can get into when we open a door and step out of God's boundaries. It is the parable about the Good Samaritan. And I want to review for you today the hazards of getting messed up and passed up. Luke's Gospel, once again, chapter number 10, beginning with verse number 30. Then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that very road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side, likewise a Levite. When he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side, but a certain Samaritan. You know this story. You've heard this message. If you've been to church just a few times, you know about this. This is a familiar story to everyone and is called the parable of the Good Samaritan. And this may have been more than a parable. It may have been a report from a recent event that was in the news in Jericho and Jerusalem. It was a likely story because priests who lived in Jericho but ministered in Jerusalem often traveled the road from Jericho to Jerusalem. And the Levites who served the priests were also common travelers on the road. And perhaps Jesus here was recounting an incident, but either way, he is illustrating a greater truth through the story here recorded in Luke chapter number 10, verses 30 through 37. And so it says, but a certain man was attacked, a certain man was beaten, a certain man was robbed and left for dead. But who were the thieves? Who beat him? Who robbed him and left him for dead? We don't know whether they were Arabians, plunderers who lived by their spoil, some criminals from his own nation or some of the Roman soldiers who, despite the strict discipline of their army, who did this harm, it is not clear. But they were hard up. Hard up because virtually always those who beat up folk are the hard up. They are most often the ones who were first victims of life's hardships. But in today's situation, it is likely this would have been a gang-related crime. And we get upset when we hear of such crimes because we see the callous hatred of such people who stirs a righteous anger within us. But regardless, we see the man needed help. He was likely a Jew, and it would have been helpful to him if someone of his own nation and religion would have come by. But as we read and study the story, we see that a priest came by. He saw him and could not help him, but discerned his desperate need. Seeing his bloody body and hearing his groans, the priest had to know. But what a messed up heart the priest had. He was supposed to be a man of public character, a man of religious prominence, a man who practiced sanctity, whose office obligated him to tenderness and compassion. And most likely, he is one who taught others how to react in cases such as this. Yet this injured man was passed by the messed up. And what an empty, disgusting feeling he must have had if he was conscious. Because a priest turned away from him, and I'm sure that as the priest passed by, he was justifying his action by making excuses. He was tired, was on his way home, didn't want to get involved. But no one was looking, and his reputation was not at stake. In reality, the priest was messed up in his relationship to God and to himself and to others. And let me tell you that there are some messed up hearts in the lives of so-called fixed up people. They look good on the outside, but hearts are messed up on the inside. No love, no compassion, no concern, no tenderness, dressed up on the outside, but messed up on the inside. Now here in our text comes the Levite. Not only did he see the hurting man, but also he looked on him according to God's word. And Luke says in verse number 32 that he made an assessment. He surveyed the damage and possibly made eye contact, but quickly he got as far away as possible, as if to say, I did not know. Maybe he was too important, and he too was part of the dressed up society, knowing better but doing it anyway. But compassion was also part of his daily learning and teaching. But here the beat up by the hard up was now messed up by the messed up and the dressed up. Now the Bible said the wounded man was half dead. And I'm guessing that the priest and the Levite perceived that the situation required more than they were willing to give. It would be more than just helping